The great hall of Arathis Prime stretched toward the darkness of space above. Through the transparent dome, 1,000 stars watched the meeting below. Representatives from 200 species sat in their designated sections. Some breathed oxygen, others methane. Some stood on legs, others floated in containment fields. But all of them shared one thing in common. They all followed the rules of the Galactic Council. Ambassador Kelthra adjusted her translation collar and stood. Her purple skin caught the light as she addressed the chamber. She was young for a Zephyrini diplomat, barely 2 centuries old. The elders had warned her not to ask questions during her first centennial session. But Kelthra had never been good at staying quiet. "Honored Council," she began, her voice carrying through the translation systems. "I wish to discuss the soul exclusion zone." The chamber fell silent. Several of the elder ambassadors shifted in their seats. One of them, a massive creature covered in thick scales, let out what the translator rendered as a groan. "This again," muttered Ambassador Threnox from the Krell delegation. His 4 eyes fixed on Kelthra with something between pity and annoyance. "Every few decades, someone asks, and every time we give the same answer. But I don't understand the answer," Kelthra pressed forward. "We maintain a 50-light-year quarantine around a single species. We forbid all contact, all trade, all communication. This goes against everything the Council stands for. We are explorers. We are traders. We are diplomats. Yet we treat this one species like a disease." "Because they are," said Elder Vorath. The ancient being spoke rarely, and when he did, the entire council listened. His species had been part of the council for 10,000 years. He had personally witnessed 500 centennial sessions. Not a disease of the body, young Kelthra. A disease of war itself. Kelthra's confusion must have shown on her face because Vorath continued. "Sit down, child. Let me tell you about the Calarith Empire." The lights in the chamber dimmed. Holographic images appeared in the center of the hall. Kelthra saw mighty warships, thousands of them, moving through space like a swarm of metal insects. 300 years ago, Vorath began, the Calarith Empire was the greatest military power in this sector. They had conquered 40 systems. Their fleet numbered in the tens of thousands. They feared nothing and no one. The hologram shifted. Now it showed a small blue planet orbiting a yellow star. They discovered a species calling themselves humans, a young race barely 500 years into their industrial age. The Calarith saw opportunity, rich worlds, valuable resources, and a species that seemed primitive by our standards. "What happened?" Kelthra asked, though part of her already feared the answer. The Calarith sent a diplomatic vessel first. Standard procedure. They offered the humans a choice. Join the Empire peacefully or be conquered. The humans asked for time to consider. The Calarith gave them 1 solar month. The hologram now showed massive ships gathering in orbit around that blue planet. When the month ended, the humans refused. So the Calarith sent their fleet. 10,000 warships. The greatest armada ever assembled. They expected the war to last weeks at most. Vorath paused. His old eyes seemed to look into the past. The war lasted 4 years. And when it ended, only 3 Calarith ships returned home. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Kelthra felt her blood run cold. 10,000 ships. Only 3 survivors. How? She whispered. How is that possible? You said the humans were primitive. We all thought that, said Ambassador Threnox. We were wrong. You see, Kelthra, we measure advancement by technology, by faster ships, stronger weapons, better shields. The humans were behind us in all of these things. But they had something we had never encountered before. What? Imagination, desperation, and the absolute refusal to accept defeat. The hologram changed again. Now it showed scenes from the war. Human ships, smaller and weaker than their enemies, slamming themselves into Calarith vessels, explosions, debris, chaos. The humans turned everything into weapons, Vorath explained. Cargo ships became bombs. Space stations became fortresses. They mined their own asteroid fields and lured Calarith fleets into traps. When they ran out of missiles, they used railguns. When the railguns failed, they rammed their ships into ours. Their soldiers were worse, added Threnox. When Calarith troops boarded human vessels, they expected quick surrender. Instead, they found crews that fought to the last breath. Humans who turned hydroponics bays into chemical weapon factories. Engineers who rigged their own ships to explode. Civilians who refused to abandon their homes and fought with whatever they could find. Kelthora watched the images in horror and fascination, but surely the Calarith adapted. They were a military empire. They tried, Vorith said sadly. Every adaptation the Calarith made, the humans countered within weeks. The Calarith deployed a new shield technology. The humans captured one ship, studied it, and developed a weapon to penetrate those shields. All in the span of one solar month. The Calarith used biological weapons. The humans created countermeasures and then deployed their own biological weapons. Worse ones. The breaking point came during the siege of Mars, Threnox continued. Mars was humanity's first colony world. The Calarith surrounded it with 3,000 ships. They bombarded the surface for weeks. Every human city was destroyed. The Calarith believed they had won. Then the humans emerged from underground bunkers and launched a counterattack. From a dead world. They had prepared for this. They had known the Calarith would target Mars, so they had turned the entire planet into one giant trap. The hologram showed a red planet, surrounded by exploding ships. 2,000 Calarith vessels were destroyed in that battle, Vorith said quietly. The humans lost Mars, yes. But they made the Calarith pay such a terrible price that the Empire's morale shattered. After that, Calarith commanders began to refuse orders. Some fleets retreated without engaging. Others surrendered at the first sight of human ships. The Calarith sent peace envoys, Threnox added. They offered reparations, treaties, anything to end the war. The humans studied their offers carefully. Then they said no. They said that peace would only come when the Calarith Empire no longer had the capability to threaten anyone ever again. Kelthora felt sick. What did the humans do? They destroyed every Calarith military installation outside their home system, Vorith said. They didn't target civilians. They didn't glass planets. But they systematically dismantled an empire that had stood for 5,000 years. When they finished, the Calarith were left with one star system and no military to speak of. The chamber was silent now. Every ambassador understood the implications. The council convened immediately after the war, Vorith continued. We studied everything we could about humanity. We sent observer teams. We reviewed their history. And what we found terrified us even more than the war itself. Humanity had been fighting wars for their entire recorded history, Threnox explained. Not just small conflicts. Total wars. Wars of extinction. Wars that consumed entire continents. They had developed weapons capable of destroying their own planet dozens of times over, and they had come within moments of using them. Multiple times. We realized something then, Vorith said. Most species develop space travel and join the galactic community before they develop truly terrible weapons. They learn cooperation and peace first. Humanity did it backward. They reached the stars while still carrying the weapons and mindset of a self-destructive species. They are not evil, Kelthora. But they are dangerous. Incredibly dangerous. So we made the Pact, Threnox finished. We declared the Sol system and 50 light years around it a forbidden zone. No contact. No trade. No communication. We would leave humanity alone. Let them develop in isolation. Perhaps in another 1,000 years they would be ready to join us. Or perhaps they would destroy themselves. Either way, the galaxy would be safer. Kelthora looked at the hologram, now showing the small blue planet again. Somewhere down there, humans lived their lives, unaware that the entire galaxy feared them. Has any species tried to contact them since? She asked. No, Vora said firmly. The Calarith example was enough. We carved warnings into every navigation chart. We teach the story in every military academy. There's a species called humanity. Leave them alone. The vote was called. The Soul Exclusion Zone would continue for another century. Kelthor voted yes, along with every other ambassador in the chamber. As the session ended and ambassadors began to leave, Kelthor looked up at the stars one more time. Somewhere out there, in a forbidden corner of space, humans lived and breathed and built their civilization. She hoped, with all her heart, that no one would ever be stupid enough to break the pact. Supreme Commander Drexith stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at the star charts with satisfaction. His reflection in the darkened viewport showed what he truly was. A predator. 2.5 meters of muscle and bone, covered in thick battle scales that had turned away blades and bullets alike. His species, the Valdrak, had evolved on a world with twice the gravity of most council planets. They were born warriors. Commander, his intelligence officer approached with a datapad. The full report on the human systems is ready. Drexith took the pad and scrolled through the information. His eyes, yellow with vertical slits, narrowed as he read. 40 human star systems. Primitive faster-than-light technology, at least 50 years behind Valdrak standards. Military forces spread thin across too many worlds. Population centers clustered in predictable patterns. This is what the Council fears, he said with a laugh that rumbled through his chest. This is what destroyed the Calarith? His officers exchanged uncertain glances. The youngest of them, a warrior named Krenth, spoke carefully. Sir, the Council records are very clear. The humans are extremely dangerous. The Pact exists for a reason. The Pact exists because the Council is weak, Drexith snapped. He tossed the datapad onto the tactical display. I have read the Calarith reports. I know what you all think you know. The Calarith lost because they were soft. They had not fought a real war in generations. They had forgotten what it meant to be warriors. He activated the display, showing the Valdrak Empire in glowing red. 200 star systems. A military tradition stretching back 8,000 years. Wars fought and won against dozens of species. The Valdrak had never lost. Not once. We are not the Calarith, Drexith continued. We are apex predators. We have crushed every enemy we have ever faced. And I refuse to cower before a species that has barely left its home system. But sir, Krenth tried again, the Council will do nothing, Drexith interrupted. They are politicians and traitors. They talk and make rules and hide behind their packs. We are the Valdrak Empire. We take what we want. He zoomed in on 3 human colony worlds near the edge of their territory. New Nairobi. Harmony Station. Shepherd's Rest, each had populations in the millions. Each had resources the Valdrak could use. Mining operations, agricultural output, and human labor. We will not attack Earth directly, Drexith explained. That would be foolish. We will take these 3 colonies. Quick strikes. Overwhelming force. We capture the humans, secure the resources, and establish our claim. By the time the Council realizes what has happened, it will be too late. They will complain and protest, but they will not risk war with the Valdrak Empire. And if the humans retaliate? Asked his second-in-command, a scarred veteran named Vexera. Let them try. Drexith showed his teeth in what his species considered a smile. We will be ready. And when their pathetic fleet arrives, we will crush it and take more of their worlds. Perhaps we will even push all the way to Earth itself. Imagine the glory. The species that made the Council tremble will kneel before Valdrak's strength. The preparations took 3 months. Drexith assembled a fleet of 2,000 warships, dreadnoughts that could crack planets, carrier vessels filled with drop troops, support ships loaded with weapons and supplies. It was by far the largest fleet the Valdrak had deployed in 2 centuries. They crossed into the Soul Exclusion Zone on a date that would later be marked in human calendars as the Day of Ashes. The attacks were perfectly coordinated. All three colonies were hit simultaneously. Valdrak ships emerged from faster-than-light travel directly above each world. They jammed communications first, then destroyed orbital defenses. The humans had warning systems, but they were slow to respond. Within hours, Valdrak troops were landing on all three planets. Drexith watched from his command ship as the reports came in. New Nairobi had fallen in 6 hours. The human militia had tried to resist, but they were no match for Valdrak warriors. Harmony Station lasted 8 hours. Shepherd's Rest held out for almost 12, but eventually they too surrendered. The casualties were acceptable. 400 Valdrak soldiers killed. Maybe 2,000 humans. Most of the human populations had been captured intact. 50,000 prisoners ready to be transported back to Valdrak labor camps. You see? Drexith said to his officers, the humans fight like any other species. They have courage, yes. But courage without strength is meaningless. He ordered his communications officer to broadcast a message to the Galactic Council. It was time to announce their victory. Honored council members, Drexith's message began. The Valdrak Empire has today established sovereignty over 3 former human colonies. These actions were necessary to secure resources vital to our continued prosperity. We have taken 50,000 human prisoners who will be treated according to the standards of military occupation. We understand this may cause concern, but let me assure you that your fears about humanity were unfounded. They fought bravely but conventionally. There is nothing supernatural or uniquely dangerous about this species. The sole exclusion zone was based on panic and exaggeration. The Valdrak Empire requests that the Council recognize our new territorial claims and update the exclusion zone accordingly. The response came within hours. But it was not what Drexith expected. Ambassador Kelthra's voice carried a tone. He had never heard from the usually diplomatic Zephrony. Fear, real, genuine fear. Commander Drexith, by the authority of the Galactic Council, you are ordered to immediately withdraw from all human territories. Release your prisoners. Retreat beyond the exclusion zone. Do this now, and there may still be time. Time for what? Drexith laughed. Time to negotiate? I think not. The humans have already lost. This matter is settled. You don't understand. Kelthra's voice was almost pleading now. You attacked their colonies. You took their people. You have done the one thing that will unite humanity like nothing else. The Council studied human psychology for decades after the HFY War. Humans can disagree with each other, fight among themselves, even split into factions. But when an external enemy threatens their children, their civilians, their innocent people, they become something else entirely. Elder Vorath's voice joined the channel. Commander, I witnessed the aftermath of the HFY War. I saw what humans are capable of when they believe they are fighting for survival. Please listen to me. Withdraw now. Pay whatever reparations they demand. But do not proceed down this path. Drexith felt anger rising in his chest. Are you threatening me, Elder? Or are you simply so afraid of these humans that you would rather see the Valdrak surrender before a battle has even been fought? I am trying to save your species, Vorath said quietly. But I can see you will not listen. Then let me give you one final warning. What you saw in those 3 colonies was not humanity at war. It was humanity surprised and unprepared. You have approximately 72 hours before their response begins. Use that time to evacuate your forces. Because when the humans come, they will not stop until every Valdrak ship in their territory is destroyed. Then let them come. Drexith cut the communication. His officers were quiet. Some of them looked uncertain now. Vexra stepped forward. Sir, perhaps we should consider their warning. The Council seems genuinely concerned. The Council is weak, Drexith repeated. We are Valdrak. We do not run from prey. He turned to his fleet. 2,000 ships? The pride of the Empire. Surely that was enough to handle whatever the humans could throw at them on the surface of New Nairobi. Valdrak troops processed their human prisoners. The humans went quietly, offering no resistance. They were scared, defeated, exactly what Drexith had expected, but one of the prisoners, An elderly human woman caught the eye of a Valdrock sergeant. She was not crying like the others. She was not begging. She was smiling. "Why do you smile?" the sergeant asked through his translator. "You have lost. Your world is ours now." The woman's smile widened. "You don't understand. You attacked our children. You took our people. You think you've won, but you've just made a terrible mistake." "What mistake?" The sergeant laughed. "You woke us up," the woman said. "Humanity was sleeping. We were content in our corner of space. We had wars in our past, terrible wars, and we were trying to leave that behind. But you came to our homes. You hurt our families. Now there's no going back. We are Valdrock," the sergeant said proudly. "We have never lost a war." "That's what the last empire said," the woman replied. "Right before we destroyed them." The sergeant dismissed her words as the ramblings of a defeated enemy. But that night, as he filed his report, he included her statement. It would be one of the last transmissions to leave New Nairobi before the communications went dark, because on Earth, in a facility buried deep beneath the Swiss Alps, Fleet Admiral Chun was addressing the Unified Defense Command. 72 hours ago, the Valdrock Empire attacked 3 of our colonies. They have taken 50,000 of our people as prisoners. They believe this matter is settled. They believe they have won. Admiral Chun's face was calm, but her eyes held something ancient and cold. "Show them how wrong they are. Activate all reserves. Recall every ship. Contact every colony. As of this moment, humanity is at war." Around the table, military commanders from every human nation and colony nodded. There were no arguments. No debates. No one asked about the cost or the risks, because the Valdrock had made the message reached every human colony simultaneously. Every ship, every station, every settlement from Mercury to the furthest outposts beyond Pluto, Fleet Admiral Chun's face appeared on billions of screens. And when she spoke, her voice carried the weight of 300 years of preparation. "Citizens of humanity, 3 days ago the Valdrock Empire invaded our colonies of New Nairobi, Harmony Station, and Shepherd's Rest. They killed 2,000 of our people. They have taken 50,000 more as prisoners. The Galactic Council has condemned these actions. The Valdrock have ignored them. They believe we will negotiate. They believe we will accept this situation. They are wrong." Admiral Chun paused, and in that moment, every human watching knew what was coming next. As of now, the Unified Defense Command is implementing Protocol Omega. Every reserve is activated. Every ship is recalled. Every resource is committed. We do not negotiate with those who attack our homes and enslave our people. We do not forgive such actions. We do not stop until justice is absolute. This is not a limited engagement. This is total war. On Earth, the transformation began immediately. Factories that produced civilian vehicles were retooled for military production. Shipyards that built cargo haulers started assembling warships. Universities emptied as students volunteered for service, not just for military duty, but for engineering teams, research divisions, and support roles. Commander Vexera, second in command of the Valdrock Occupation Forces, watched these developments with growing concern. Her intelligence teams had tapped into human communications. What she saw made no sense according to everything she knew about warfare. "They are mobilizing their entire civilization," she reported to Drexith. "Not just their military, everyone. Civilian factories are being converted to weapons production. They are doing in days what should take months." "Let them build their toys," Drexith replied. "We have 2,000 warships." "They have what? Maybe 300? 600, Vexara corrected. "As of this morning. They have been pulling reserve vessels out of storage, old warships from the Calarith conflict. They are refitting them with updated weapons." "Still not enough," Drexith said confidently. "We outnumber them 3-1. But Vexara was not convinced. She had been reading the historical files on the Calarith War, The Kalerith had also outnumbered humanity. Badly, it had not mattered. The first human counterattack came 4 days after the invasion. But it was not what the Valdrak expected. Drexith had positioned his fleet defensively, anticipating that human ships would try to retake the captured colonies. He had reinforced the orbital defenses. He had prepared ambush points. He was ready for a conventional military engagement. The humans ignored the colonies entirely. Instead, 36 human warships appeared deep in Valdrak territory, 6 systems away from the occupation zone. They struck a major supply depot that had been feeding the Valdrak fleet. The attack was surgical and brutal. The humans destroyed every supply ship, every fuel storage facility, every ammunition dump. Then they vanished back into faster-than-light travel before Valdrak reinforcements could arrive. How did they get past our sensor networks? Drexith demanded. His intelligence officer looked pale. We do not know, sir. They used some kind of stealth technology we have never seen before. By the time we detected them, they were already firing. 8 hours later, another human strike force hit a Valdrak communications relay. This one was even deeper in the Empire's territory. The relay was destroyed, cutting off direct communications to 15 Valdrak systems. Drexith began to feel the first hints of doubt. They are avoiding our main fleet. They are targeting infrastructure. It is a classic strategy, Vexora said. Cut the supply lines. Isolate the enemy forces. Force them to choose between protecting their territory or maintaining their occupation. Then we will crush them when they finally come for the colonies, Drexith said. But even he could hear the uncertainty in his own voice. The humans did not come for the colonies. Not yet. Instead, they launched a campaign of psychological warfare that shook the Valdrak to their core on the captured colonies. Valdrak soldiers began receiving strange transmissions on their personal communicators. Videos. The first showed a Valdrak dreadnought being torn apart by human weapons. The footage was extremely detailed. You could see individual Valdrak crew members being sucked into space. You could hear their screams. The second video showed the aftermath of a human boarding action. A Valdrak carrier that had been taken by human marines. The interior corridors were covered in Valdrak blood. Human soldiers moved through the ship with terrifying efficiency, checking every compartment, securing every deck. The third video was the worst. It showed captured Valdrak prisoners. They were not being tortured. They were not being executed. Instead, they were being interviewed. And what they said broke the morale of every Valdrak soldier who watched. We thought we were the apex predators, one captured Valdrak officer said to the human interviewer. We were wrong. Humans are something else. They do not fight like we do. They do not think like we do. When we boarded their colony ship, they turned the life support into a weapon. They flooded the corridors with poison gas. Then they came for us wearing protection suits, hunting us deck by deck. We are trained warriors. We have fought dozens of species. But the humans hunted us like we were prey. The video ended with a message in both Valdrak and Galactic Standard. You took our children. We are coming for everything. Vexor brought these transmissions to Drexith's attention. Sir, the troops are frightened. These psychological attacks are extremely effective. Morale is dropping. Then tell them to stop watching enemy propaganda, Drexith snapped, but it was not just the videos. Human ships began appearing at random throughout Valdrak space. They would enter a system, broadcast a message, and leave before they could be engaged. The message was always the same. We know where your worlds are. We know where your civilians are. We could strike them at any time. But we will not. We are not monsters. We do not target the innocent. But your military? Your ships? Your soldiers who invaded our homes? For them, there is no mercy. Surrender now, or discover what humanity does to slavers. Drexith tried to counter with his own propaganda. He broadcast messages showing the Valdrak's military might. He showed footage of their successful invasions of other species. He reminded his troops that they were undefeated warriors. It did not work, because 2 weeks after the invasion, the humans did something that changed everything. Human fleet of 60 ships appeared at the edge of the system where Drexith's flagship was stationed. 60 ships against 2,000, suicide, Drexith prepared to obliterate them. He maneuvered his fleet to surround the human vessels. He targeted their engines to prevent escape. He was about to give the order to fire when the human admiral opened a communication channel. Commander Drexith. This is Admiral James Kowalski of the Earth Defense Fleet. We are here to deliver a message. You are here to die, Drexith replied. Maybe, Kowalski said calmly. But first, I want to show you something. The view screen changed. It now showed a Valdrak industrial world called Drex Minor, orbital shipyards, manufacturing facilities, millions of Valdrak workers. This is one of your core worlds, Kowalski continued. Right now, 80 human ships are in orbit around it. They have weapons trained on every military target on that planet. One word from me and they open fire. Drexith felt his blood run cold. You are bluffing. You said you do not target civilians. We don't, Kowalski agreed. Those 80 ships have very specific targeting solutions. Military bases, weapons factories, shipyards, nothing else. We will not harm a single civilian. But we will destroy your military infrastructure on that world. And then we will move to the next one. And the next. We will systematically dismantle your empire's ability to wage war. If you attack Drex Minor, I will execute every human prisoner, Drexith threatened. Kowalski's face hardened. If you harm one prisoner, every Valdrak soldier in human territory will be considered a war criminal. There will be trials. There will be executions. You will be held personally responsible. You cannot threaten me, Drexith said, but his voice lacked conviction. This is not a threat, Commander. This is a promise. You started this war. You attacked our colonies. You took our people. Now you get to see what happens when humanity fights back. Here is what is going to happen. In 1 hour, if you have not begun withdrawing your forces from our colonies, we will begin hitting your industrial targets. Every hour after that, we will destroy another Valdrak military installation. We will not stop. We will not negotiate. We will not show mercy to your military. The Council will stop you, Drexith said desperately. The Council will do nothing, Kowalski replied. You broke their pact. You invaded our space. They warned you. You ignored them. Now you are our problem, and we will solve you our way. The communication ended. Drexith stared at the screen showing his 60 ships surrounded by 2,000 Valdrak warships. Sir, Vexora said quietly, they are not here to fight. They are here to die. Look at their ships. Drexith looked closer. The human vessels were older models, pre-war designs. And they, whoa. Supreme Commander Drexith stared at the countdown timer. 47 minutes. 46. 45. Each second brought him closer to a decision that would define his species' future. Sir, Vexora approached carefully. We should respond. The humans are waiting. Drexith's pride warred with his pragmatism. The Valdrak had never surrendered. Never negotiated from a position of weakness. To do so now would bring shame upon his entire line. But to refuse would bring destruction. He opened a communication channel to Admiral Kowalski. What are your terms? The words tasted like poison in his mouth. Kowalski's response was immediate. Unconditional withdrawal from all human territories within 48 hours. Release of all prisoners unharmed. Reparations to be determined after the war. Your personal surrender to face war crimes tribunal. Unacceptable, Drexith said. I will withdraw our forces and release the prisoners. But I will not surrender myself. The Valdrak Empire does not hand over its commanders to enemy judgment. Then we have nothing more to discuss, Kowalski said. 39 minutes, Commander. The channel closed. Drexith turned to his officers. They all wore the same expression. They wanted him to surrender. They had seen the intelligence reports. They understood what humanity was capable of. But none of them would speak the words. To suggest surrender would be cowardice. Prepare the fleet for combat, Drexith ordered. If the humans want war, we will give them war. But even as he said the words, he knew they rang hollow. This was not about courage anymore. This was about mathematics. And the numbers did not favor the Valdrock when the countdown reached 0. Hell came to the Valdrock Empire. 80 human ships opened fire on Drex Minor. The bombardment was precise and devastating. Orbital weapons platforms were destroyed in the first volley. Shipyards that had built Valdrock dreadnoughts for centuries were reduced to debris. Military bases vanished in nuclear fire. True to their word, the humans did not target civilian areas. But the military infrastructure of an entire world was crippled in less than an hour, and then the human fleet moved to the next target. Drexith scrambled to respond. He divided his fleet, sending task forces to defend critical worlds. But the humans seemed to know exactly where the Valdrock would be weakest. They struck systems that had minimal defenses. They destroyed supply lines. They turned the vast size of the Valdrock Empire against itself. Worse, the humans were learning. Every battle taught them something new about Valdrock tactics. Every captured ship gave them intelligence about Valdrock technology. Within weeks, human engineers had reverse-engineered Valdrock shield generators and developed weapons specifically designed to penetrate them. The Valdrock, meanwhile, could not adapt to human tactics because human tactics made no sense. A human destroyer rammed a Valdrock battleship at near light speed, destroying both vessels. The Valdrock called it suicide. The humans called it mathematics. One old destroyer for one enemy battleship was an acceptable trade. Human marines boarded a Valdrock carrier using nothing but thruster packs and cutting torches. They breached the hull in a dozen places simultaneously. Inside, they fought with a ferocity that stunned the Valdrock defenders. Human soldiers used their own injured as bait to lure Valdrock troops into ambush. They rigged corpses with explosives. They fought in conditions that would kill most species and seemed to thrive in chaos. One Valdrock officer, rescued from a destroyed ship, was interviewed by his own intelligence service. His report became legendary. I watched a human soldier take 17 hits from plasma weapons. 17. Any one of those shots should have been fatal. But he kept fighting. He killed 4 of my warriors before he finally collapsed. When our medics examined his body, they found combat stimulants in his system. The human had injected himself with chemicals that blocked pain and kept him conscious despite fatal injuries. He knew he was dead. He accepted it, and he used his final minutes to kill as many of us as he could. The report continued. I have fought in 30 campaigns. I have seen brave warriors from a dozen species. But I have never seen anything like human soldiers. They do not fight to win. They fight to make losing as expensive as possible for their enemies. They turn every battle into a nightmare, even when they are losing. 2 months into the war, Drexith's fleet had been reduced to 1,400 ships. 600 destroyed. 200 captured. The rest scattered across a dozen systems, trying desperately to protect critical infrastructure. The human fleet had grown to 800 ships. Where were they coming from? Drexith's intelligence officers provided the answer. The humans were not just building new ships. They were converting everything into weapons. Cargo haulers were fitted with missile pods. Mining ships became carriers for combat drones. Civilian transports were reinforced and armed, then sent into battle as support vessels. One human freighter, filled with nuclear weapons, had been remotely piloted into a Valdrock formation and detonated. It destroyed 47 Valdrock ships in a single explosion. They are insane, Drexith whispered when he saw the report. No, Vexera corrected quietly. They are committed. There is a difference. The turning point came during the Battle of Valdrock Prime. Drexith had pulled back his remaining forces to defend the homeworld. 1,200 ships in defensive formation around the planet where the Valdrock species had evolved. Surely the humans would not attack here. Surely they would recognize that destroying a species' homeworld crossed a line. Even in total war, the human fleet arrived 3 months after the war began. 600 ships, still outnumbered 2 to 1. Still, they came. Admiral Chun herself commanded the human forces. Her message to Drexith was brief. Commander Drexith. You have one opportunity to end this without further bloodshed. Surrender yourself and your military command. Accept the terms we offered you 3 months ago, or watch your empire fall. Drexith's response was equally brief. Come and try. The battle lasted 16 hours. It was the largest space engagement in galactic history since the HFY War. The humans fought with a coordination that seemed impossible. Every ship knew exactly where every other ship was. They moved like a single organism, covering each other's weaknesses, exploiting every gap in the Valdrock formation. Valdrock ships were superior in individual combat. Stronger shields, more powerful weapons, better armor. But the humans did not fight individually. They fought in groups, focusing fire on single targets, destroying ships one by one before moving to the next. When Valdrock fighters launched, human ships filled space with defensive drones. When Valdrock dreadnoughts fired their main guns, human destroyers scattered in unpredictable patterns. When Valdrock commanders tried to organize tactical responses, human hackers jammed their communications, and when the battle seemed to be reaching a stalemate, the humans revealed their final surprise. 3 massive vessels emerged from faster-than-light travel. Not warships, something else. The Valdrock sensors identified them as construction ships from human mining operations. Each was kilometers long, designed to process asteroids. The humans had converted them into kinetic weapons platforms. Each ship carried hundreds of refined metal slugs, tungsten, depleted uranium. Simple materials but accelerated to a fraction of light speed by massive railguns. The physics were elementary. Mass times velocity equals devastation. The construction ships opened fire. Metal slugs tore through Valdrock shields like they were not there. Each impact released energy equivalent to nuclear weapons. Valdrock dreadnoughts, the pride of the Empire, were torn apart by projectiles that cost almost nothing to produce. Drexith watched his fleet die. He watched centuries of military tradition and pride turn to debris and vapor. He watched the greatest armada the Valdrock had ever assembled get systematically dismantled by an enemy that refused to play by the rules of civilized warfare. When his flagship took a critical hit and began to lose atmosphere, Vexra found him in the command center. "Sir, we must evacuate. The ship is lost." Drexith looked at the tactical display. 300 Valdrock ships remained. The humans had lost maybe 100. The mathematics were clear. The battle was over. The war was over. "Send a message to Admiral Chun," he said quietly. "I surrender unconditionally." The fighting stopped within minutes. Human ships ceased fire. Valdrock vessels, relieved and exhausted, powered down their weapons. Drexith was transported to a human vessel for the formal surrender. He expected triumph from his captors. He expected mockery or cruelty. Instead, he found respect. Admiral Chun met him in the docking bay. She was smaller than him, like all humans, fragile-looking, but her eyes held something that Drexith now recognized. The same cold certainty he had seen in the eyes of Valdrock warriors. The absolute conviction that, if necessary, she would die to complete her mission. "Commander Drexith," she said formally, "you will be held for trial on charges of illegal warfare, kidnapping, and enslavement. You will have legal representation. You will be treated according to the standards of military prisoners. Your crew will be afforded the same rights." "What about my empire?" Drexith asked. "What about my people?" "Your empire is over," Chun said bluntly. "The Valdrock will be allowed to keep your homeworld and 3 colony systems. Everything else will be administered by a joint human council peacekeeping force until reparations are paid and we are satisfied that, longer pose a threat to anyone. You are destroying 8,000 years of history." The Galactic Council chamber had never been so silent. 200 species watched as the doors opened and humanity entered for the first time in 3 centuries. Ambassador Sarah Okafor walked across the floor with measured steps. She was neither tall nor physically imposing. She wore a simple diplomatic uniform, dark blue with gold trim. No weapons, no guards. Just one human woman entering a room filled with beings who had spent 300 years avoiding her species. Ambassador Kelthra watched from the Zephyrni delegation. She had been the one to question the soul exclusion zone all those years ago. Now she understood why the elders had been so insistent. The reports from the Valdrock War had shaken every military analyst in the council. 1,847 Valdrock ships destroyed. An empire that had stood for 8,000 years reduced to 4-star systems in 18 months, and humanity had done it while fighting. At less than 1/3 of their full strength, Okafor reached the center of the chamber and stood beneath the dome of stars. She did not bow. She did not offer elaborate greetings. She simply began to speak. Honored members of the Galactic Council, I am Ambassador Sarah Okafor, representing the unified human government. I come to you today to discuss the future of human-galactic relations in the aftermath of the Valdrock War. Elder Vorath leaned forward from his seat. His ancient eyes studied this human carefully. Ambassador Okafor, the Council watched the Valdrock War with great interest and great concern. Your species demonstrated military capabilities far beyond what we had estimated. We would know the extent of humanity's forces. No, Okafor said simply. A ripple of shock went through the chamber. No one said no to the Galactic Council. Not so directly. You misunderstand your position, Ambassador Thrennox said carefully. You are here as a petitioner. The Council must know if you pose a threat to galactic peace. With respect, Ambassador Thrennox, I am not a petitioner, Okafor replied. I am an equal. Humanity did not start the Valdrock War. Commander Drexith violated the soul exclusion zone. He attacked our colonies. He enslaved our people. We responded with appropriate force. We stopped when the Valdrock surrendered. We did not glass their worlds. We did not commit genocide. We followed the rules of civilized warfare. You destroyed their empire, Kelthra heard herself say. Okafor turned to look at her. Yes, we did. Because that empire attacked us. The Valdrock came to our homes with the intention of enslaving humanity. We showed them the price of that decision, just as we showed the Kalarith Empire 300 years ago. And if another species threatens you? Elder Vorath asked. Will you destroy them as well? If they attack us, yes, Okafor said without hesitation. Humanity has no desire for conquest. We do not want your territory. We do not want to rule other species. We want to be left alone. But we will defend ourselves absolutely, without compromise, and without mercy for those who target our civilians. The chamber erupted in debate. Some ambassadors argued that humanity should be contained by force. Others suggested that dialogue and integration were the only paths forward. Still, others recommended strengthening the exclusion zone and simply never dealing with humans again. Elder Vorath called for silence. When the chamber quieted, he spoke. Ambassador Okafor, you say humanity wants to be left alone? Yet you are here in this chamber speaking with us. What does humanity want from the Galactic Council? 3 things, Okafor said. She counted them on her fingers. First, we want the soul exclusion zone maintained and expanded. 100 light-years in all directions from Earth. No unauthorized contact. No trade, no exploration. Humanity will remain in our territory. You remain in yours. That is acceptable, Vorath said. Several ambassadors nodded in agreement. Second, Okafor continued, we want the Galactic Council to enforce this zone. If another species violates it, as the Valdrock did, we expect the Council to take immediate action. If you do not, we will. And our response will be exactly what you witnessed over the past 18 months. The chamber was silent again. It was a threat. Unmistakable and clear, but it was also reasonable. The Council had failed to stop the Valdrock. That failure had cost both species dearly, and third, Vorath asked. We want diplomatic communication maintained, Okafor said. Not trade, not cultural exchange, not integration. Simply a channel of communication. so that if there are disputes, we can resolve them through dialogue rather than war. We will establish an embassy here on Varathus Prime 1 Ambassador, a small support staff. That is all? In return, you may send an observer to Earth. They will be treated with respect and courtesy. Ambassador Threnok spoke up. Why should we agree to this? You have shown yourself to be dangerous. Some would argue we should quarantine you completely. Because we are not going away, Okafor said bluntly. Humanity exists. We are here. We are expanding within our own territory. In 100 years, we will have 100 colonies. In 200 years, 500. You can pretend we do not exist, or you can maintain a dialogue so that accidents and misunderstandings do not escalate into wars. The choice is yours. Kelthera found herself speaking again. What if we refuse? What if the Council votes to isolate humanity completely? Okafor looked at her with something like sympathy. Then, in 50 years or 100 years, some ambitious species will see our growing territory and try to take it. Just like the Valdrak did, just like the Calarith before them. And we will defend ourselves again, and the galaxy will have another empire reduced to rubble. Eventually, someone will attack us when we are having a bad century, when we are tired of being threatened. And that time, we might not stop with just one empire. You are threatening the entire Galactic Council, an ambassador from the Krell delegation accused. No, Okafor said firmly. I am telling you the truth. Humanity does not want war. We have seen too much of it in our own history. We know what it costs. But we will not be victims. We will not be enslaved. We will not allow attacks on our civilians to go unanswered. These are not threats. These are facts. The Valdrak learned them. The Calarith learned them 300 years ago. How many more empires need to learn before you understand? Elder Vorath stood. It was a significant gesture. Elders rarely stood during council sessions. I have lived for 6,000 of your years, Ambassador Okafor. I have witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations. I have seen species achieve greatness and species destroy themselves. And I have seen humanity. Twice now, I have watched your species at war. Do you know what I have learned? What? Okafor asked. That humanity fights the way a cornered predator fights. With absolute desperation and absolute conviction. You do not fight to win glory or territory. You fight because you believe you have no other choice. The Calarith tried to enslave you and you destroyed them. The Valdrak tried to enslave you, and you destroyed them. In both cases, you demonstrated capabilities far beyond what the Council believed possible. Not because your technology is superior, but because your willingness to sacrifice is total. Vorath walked slowly around the chamber, his words carrying to every delegation. I have reviewed the intelligence from the Valdrak War. Do you know what frightened me most? Not your weapons. Not your tactics. It was your volunteers. Within days of the Valdrak attack, 30 million humans volunteered for military service. 30 million. From a total population of just 8 billion. Nearly 1 in every 250 of your people was willing to die to protect the others? He stopped and turned to face the council. And that was just the military volunteers. Another 100 million volunteered for civilian support roles. Factory workers, engineers, medics, scientists working on weapons development. Humanity mobilized their entire civilization in days. Something that should be impossible. Something that requires either tyranny or a level of social cohesion we cannot comprehend. We protect our own, Okafor said quietly. It is what we do. It is what we have always done. Vorath nodded. I believe you. And that is why I will support your proposal. The Soul Exclusion Zone should be expanded. Diplomatic communication should be maintained. And the Galactic Council should enforce the zone absolutely. Because the alternative is more wars like the one we just witnessed. And eventually, as you said, humanity may not stop with just one empire. The vote was called. It was not unanimous. Some species voted against any contact with humanity. Others wanted stricter controls. but the majority supported Okafor's proposal. The Sol exclusion zone was expanded to 100 light-years. A human embassy would be established on Varathus Prime, a council observer would be sent to Earth, and most importantly, a new law was added to the Galactic Charter. Article 1. Humanity is not to be contacted, threatened, or engaged by any member species of the Galactic Council without unanimous council approval. Violation of this article will result in immediate expulsion from the Council and prosecution of the responsible parties. Ambassador Kelthera approached Okafor after the session ended. "I have a question," she said. "If you do not mind."